The iconic Charleston Wine and Food Festival returns next month for another exciting year. Today, I talk one-on-one with the executive director of this festival, Alyssa Smith, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Alyssa Smith, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me on your show again.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are the executive director of the Charleston Wine and Food Festival. So we're just a couple of, actually next month is the beginning of your festival once again. So What's new, what's now with the Charleston Wine and Food Festival?
So we're about 30 days out. So this is the busy time for our team. We're excited. We've got a whole new schedule of events. So this year's festival will feature 109 events over the course of 5 days. Ooh. We'll kick things off on March 6th at the Cistern on the College of Charleston campus with opening night, which is one of my most favorite events that we produce and one that's near and dear to my heart as I am an alum of the College of Charleston.
Yes, ma'am.
And then Thursday is really when things really pick up. We'll start to open all of our ancillary hubs. So our beverage hub, where all of our beverage workshops take place at the beautiful Mills House Hotel, downtown Charleston. Our cooking classes take place at Trident Tech's Palmer campus downtown. So that will open up and kick off on Thursday, as well as some of our excursions, our signature dinners, lunches, brunches, and it will just be kind of a citywide takeover of events. Pretty excited about some of the new changes we've got in the village. This year, coming back, we're bringing back the Rosé Garden, which for people who've attended the festival for a long time, that was a beloved spot in the culinary village. Our main demo stage programming is awesome, super fun mashup of local chefs paired with, regional and national chefs. We've got everything from culinary competitions to cooking demonstrations. So if you're an avid Culinary Village fan, definitely make sure you go to the website and check out the schedule this year for the demos because they're pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
And this year we've introduced, with the help of some partners, a new zero proof garden. So it's an entire selection of non-alcoholic beverages. We've got some great beverage talent in that space, mixing up some spirit-free cocktails. So if you are on the sober curious movement, or you're just interested in maybe partaking in something that's non-alcoholic, that's going to be a pretty cool new offering in the village this year.
Wow. So if you look back at the past festivals, Alyssa, how many non-alcoholic drinkers did you have attending the festival?
We don't really track that, Quintin, so it's hard to say, but I will say that the food and beverage industry has seen a lot, and really, our country, as we've become more health and wellness conscious, I think this movement of being able to enjoy food and beverage in a way that's a little more health conscious is something that we've seen as a whole. And so we've been working towards, implementing each year. We implement something. Last year at one of our events, Bubbles and Buckets, we actually had a non-alcoholic rosé, which was fabulous. San Pellegrino and Aquapana have been our water partners for several years, and that's an offering we had. And so we try to make sure that every event on the festival schedule has a non-alcoholic option besides just water, of course. So I'm excited about it. I think that there's a lot of new brands that have come into the space. So we've been working with the team over at Sachet, and they've helped to curate and present this spirit-free garden in the village. So I think people are going to be excited about it and be able to try something a little bit new.
And I figured they would actually help you all with that particular aspect of the festival. So that's good to know. And I'm sitting right nearby there anyway. So that's a great location and great people over there. But let me ask you, since you moved kind of towards more health conscious and alcoholic beverages, how many partners have actually joined the festival as a result of that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of spaces. We have actually a couple non-alcoholic beers that asked to be involved in the festival this
Huh.
year. Again, we're working with the team over at Sachet to curate this space within the culinary village. Spiritless has long been a partner and involved in the festival. We've worked with kombuchas and kind of like locally made sodas. So there's a lot in the like more artisanal and craft space of that area of food and beverage, that it's been interesting to have when they know that there's a place for them within the wine and food festival landscape. You start to have more people that are coming and saying, hey, I saw this, how can we be a part of it? And really starts to build that, that wider community.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, listen. Looking back to the festival years ago to right now, what is that landscape when you think of wine and food?
I mean, for us, it changes every year. So I think something that Charleston Wine and Food has done a really good job of making sure that we're an accurate reflection of what's happening in our community. And so that's one of the reasons why we change up the events every year, because they really are an opportunity for us to showcase stories and to utilize the festival as a platform to elevate and highlight, business owners in our community. And so every year it changes. I mean, this year we've got Chef Nico doing a Cultura Kamayan dinner, which is pretty exciting, seeing as he just was nominated by as a semifinalist for James Beard. Same thing with James London and Chef Jock Larson. Both of them are involved. Jock has every year the Obstinate Daughter Brunch is one of like the most favorites and typically sells out the day we launch it.
Oh,
James is actually teaching a cooking class at the Trident Palmer campus this year on how to break down a whole fish. So really trying to teach people skills that seafood is something that we all eat here a lot, right? Living in the low country. But you would be surprised at the number of people that don't actually know how to take maybe a whole fish and break it down and cook it at home. So that's something that Chef James London is doing. And I mean, there's still a ton of stuff that has tickets too. I know that we often get the reputation that everything sells out so quickly, and there's some fabulous stuff. You can still get tickets to Nico's Cultura dinner, which I think is, hopefully this publishes soon, because
yes.
I think it will go pretty quickly. We've got two other signature events, one called the Catch of the Day out at Bowen's, which is really focusing on sustainable seafood and cooking what's in season, which hence the name Catch of the Day. So that one's going to be absolutely fabulous and a ton of seafood heavy if you're a seafood lover. And then we've got another event, signature event on Thursday at the festival that you can still get tickets to as well, called the Low Country High Life. That really is highlighting that story of what it's like to live here in the Low Country. And an exciting note for that one is Martha Lou's daughters are actually going to be cooking at that event their famous fried chicken. So for anyone who is like misses them and being able to go and eat at that restaurant, you can get the food at the Low Country High Life, which we're really excited. I don't feel like we can do an event honoring the cooking of the Low Country and not have Martha Lou's have a presence there. So there's a ton of fun surprises. I think that's something that Charleston Wine and Food always tries to do at our events, is like, what's that like kind of next level surprise? What's that something that we can bring to guests that they can't normally get? And how can we deliver on that? And Quintin, there's one other exciting thing I want to tell you about for this year's festival, and we piloted it last year. So we piloted a program, a culinary high school scholars program. It started with Charleston County School District's high school culinary program. So last festival, 2023, was the first time we did it. We just piloted the externship during the festival. It's a paid externship program that takes students who are enrolled in Culinary 1 or Culinary 2 at any Charleston County School District public high school, and they have the ability to sign up for a paid externship at the festival. They get to work along chefs throughout the week. They work in the prep kitchens, they help on the demo stages, and it's a way to really showcase the breadth of opportunities that there are in culinary and hospitality here locally, and have them create some connections and receive some on-site technical training, and do it in a paid capacity, which is awesome. So we just launched the program year round. So this year we brought some chefs into the classroom in the fall. We did some visits in the spring, and this week we launched the signups for this year's program. And we had 500 hours worth of shifts go in 2 hours, and all of the spots are filled. So for people who are out and about at the festival this year, if you notice students, like, please say hi, introduce yourself. They'll be wearing their chef coats from their schools. So you'll notice they're like, West Ashley High School logo or Burke High School logo. Yes. For the programs that are participating. And we're pretty excited to be doing this. And the response we've gotten from the students, the teachers, and the chefs is one of general excitement. So I could keep going on and on and on, but the best place to go for the latest and greatest is head to charlestonwineandfood.com. That's where you'll find the full schedule of events. You can filter by events that are available, so you can see anything that still has tickets left. You can read more about some of our education and workforce development programs that we've launched. And there's also ways to get involved. So if you're interested in being a volunteer, we're still actively accepting volunteers as well.
Yeah, that's a really amazing. Sorry, I got thrown off by the kids right here. But let me ask you this. You talk about, obviously, those kids from Burke High School, which I love. That's my school, class 2004, and the other schools.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, it's like they have great stories to tell about that school. But demographic-wise, Alyssa, how many of those particular students actually come to the Wine and Food Festival because of these kids?
Of our guests?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we just launched the program, so it's kind of hard to tell now. But that's an interesting question, Quintin, and one that we should think about. I think the bigger thing for Charleston Wine and Food is, as a nonprofit organization that's celebrating the food and beverage industry here locally, we are really trying to create programs that regenerate and give back to the industry that we're celebrating. So education and workforce development is kind of our first step in that direction. Outside of our culinary and hospitality scholarships at Culinary Institute of Charleston and College of Charleston, we wanted to dig deeper and really get to work hand in hand with students and hopefully create, that spark of inspiration that sometimes you don't get, right, unless you're on the ground at an internship or you're having work experience. You don't get it in the classroom. So I think that's what makes the program super unique, is we're able to complement what these teachers work so hard at all year round to teach them skills, and then bring them into an environment like this that's just energetic and exciting. And there's all the best chefs in Charleston, participate. And it's that like spark of inspiration and creativity in that moment where they can be like, oh, wow, like this is what this could mean if I went into a career in this field.
What workforce development sessions have you all learned that you want to apply to the festival going forth?
So the festival, the on-site technical training is something that people don't realize is really a possibility. We have an entire culinary operations team that we bring on to help us run this festival. So behind the scenes of what the guests see is like a whole back of house where we're building out kitchens and infrastructure to service the guests. And that in and of itself, I think, is a cool opportunity for students like this to kind of get to see the inner workings of, oh, wow, this is a kitchen just like walking into our classroom kitchen, but they built this in the middle of a field, which means, thinking through running the power, the water, the gas, bringing in the correct flooring and tables, making sure everything is DHEC certified and approved. And so there's a lot that goes into literally just getting to the point of now we can actually cook food in this space. And so even that portion, I think, provides a lot of perspective.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I want to get back to that in a second. And the lawnmower guys coming now. There's a lot of distractions out. Today's not the day for this, I guess. But let me ask you, going back to tickets, how many tickets have you sold thus far?
So about About 80% of the programming is sold out. So there's still 20% that people can participate in. There's a lot of events, like the stuff that tends to have smaller capacities goes quickly, right? Our cooking classes only have 24 people in them, so they go quicker. So whenever people ask me recommendations, I'm like, if you're looking at something that's a lunch or a dinner or a cooking class or beverage workshop, sometimes the number of tickets available is limited by the space in which we're producing the event, so they tend to go quicker. Some of our signature events that are larger capacities, 500 to 1,000 people, or the Culinary Village that sees like 5,500 people per day, there tends to be tickets still available at this point because it's just we have more space, so we have the ability to sell more tickets. So there's still, like I said, if you head to the website, Quintin, and there's a filter on the schedule that says availability, you can see anything that has tickets, and it will even tell you if it's limited quantity. So if you're trying to decide like, oh, should I get this now or should I wait a little bit longer? We put that feature on there too, so you don't miss out on things that they want.
Absolutely. And speaking of the cooking classes, Alyssa, in the future, because of the limited quantity and quality, obviously, do you want to expand that to other locations here in the Low Country?
So we've done some cooking classes in our office. Actually, we have a test kitchen in there.
Yes.
And this was really before COVID. So it's taken us, a little bit to recalibrate after having a canceled festival and coming back after that. So we really put a lot of focus on fine tuning the festival experience. But my goal and hope is that we can start to do more events year round, and our test kitchen and being able to have chefs in there for guests to participate with would be an awesome spot.
Wow. That is really amazing. And going forward, as far as tickets, Alyssa, do you see a cap happening in the future with that?
We will not produce at a festival any bigger than the one that we are producing. So 109 events over 5 days is a large feat. So
Yes, ma'am. And going back to those 109 events, Alyssa, how many of those events are actually new total wise?
about 80% of our programming we turn over every year. And even if, like, for instance, even the signature dinner. So if you went to, let's say, the Oak Steakhouse dinner last year and you want to go to the Oak Steakhouse dinner again this year, it's going to be a different experience because we bring in a different guest chef and a different guest beverage component, and it's a different menu. So even for those that might be the same establishments participating, the programming is different year over year. And it's exciting. It gives us the opportunity to showcase more talent. It gives us the opportunity to give guests something new to experience, and it keeps things fresh and creative for the team that's working to produce it.
And Alyssa, it seems to me that you're returning some of these events back to the peninsula. Is that right?
So yeah, we do. We've always had a big presence on the peninsula. I think that, and this is something that I can't take credit for, but Charleston Wine and Food in general has done a pretty good job over the years of diversifying where our events take place. I think when you're talking about food, it's important to think through geography, right? So we've always had a presence of events in Mount Pleasant and North Charleston and downtown on the peninsula. Typically we do something out, towards Folly, James Island, Johns Island. This year we have something out on Kiowa, which actually is new for us. We haven't done something out on Kiowa in quite some time. So 2 events out on Kiowa this year. We've done Edisto, McClellanville. So it tends to be, kind of a spreading around, so that way the entire Tri-County region has the ability to find something kind of close to where they live to participate in. And it also helps us highlight venues and businesses in certain areas, because as Charleston's grown, the restaurants have like Upper Mount Pleasant, North Mount Pleasant has like a great little restaurant spot. Obviously, Park Circle has become like a hot spot. Goose Creek has got an awesome Brazilian restaurant kind of community there. Somerville. So I really feel like you got to explore all the different areas and the food scene that each area has to offer.
Absolutely. And is there any other locations that you all missed that you want to get to next year?
So our excursion series gives us the opportunity to kind of do that. So these are what I call like immersive field food trips, and those tend to be where we will really take people places. So this year, one of our excursions is they all leave from the visitor center downtown Charleston, so you can park there, and then you get on a shuttle, and then we transport you to the story we're trying to tell. So this year, we're actually going up to Lake Marion. And we're doing an exploration of fish camps. So people will leave from the visitor center. We'll bus them to where they'll board a boat on Lake Marion. We'll take them by boat to a couple fish camps where they'll get to really experience fish camp cuisine, gator bites, fried catfish, seafood, hear the stories of these families that have owned these establishments for multiple generations. And then we're ending in a feast that will be taking place at Cypress Gardens, which is absolutely stunning. And we've got Tia Clark from Casual Crabbing with Tia, and she is going to be preparing with some wines paired with it too, with Ashley Shanti on the culinary side as well. An awesome lunch. So that's just an experience. That's an example of an experience unique only to this festival. Amazing chef talent and the ability to take people to explore something that maybe they've never done before. So it kind of these excursions encourage you to be a little bit of like a tourist in your own town, which is fun.
It's fun. Obviously, you have essentially the infrastructure in place, Alyssa, but do you have enough money from these governing entities to help continue to fund the Wine and Food Festival?
So we're lucky to receive ATAX funding for, economic development and tourism generation, and we apply through the public process for those municipalities. And I mean, honestly, that support is critical to events and to festivals, not only Charleston Wine and Food, but we've got other nonprofit festivals in Charleston like Seawee and Spoleto and Bridge Run.
Oh, yes.
And these events do so much for our city, and more so than just when they exist. And so I think that government support and funding is critical as you're talking about creating something that showcases story, that allows people to participate in community and connection. I think it's so important. And events have the ability to do that. And then these funding sources help us, to sustain that and being able to do it all year round. And I think it's pretty unique. Charleston is unique in that they have a nationally acclaimed nonprofit wine and food festival. They've got a nationally acclaimed, wildlife and conservation exhibition, which CB kicks off next week.
Yes, ma'am.
And the same thing with Spoleto. It's pretty phenomenal that you've got that large of a representation and just events that are so well recognized on a national level, and that gives so much to this community. I think it's super special what we have here. So
now that some of these events are really essentially on the peninsula for this particular festival, Alyssa, will you all actually seek more accommodation tax funding from the city of Charleston?
So the accommodation tax funding is an interesting one, Quintin, because it's used for advertising and marketing purposes. So the money has to be used on marketing and advertising for the event, a 50-mile radius outside the city. So our request for funding is really dependent on our marketing and advertising budget. So it just depends on if we decide to do anything maybe more in a space, then that could warrant maybe an organization asking for more money and support from that. So I hope that answers your question, but that's how the money has to be spent. So it's not really indicative of necessarily like where your event is taking place, because you're not using those funds for operational costs. And for us, our name's Charleston Wine and Food. So any ad, that we advertise, it has Charleston in the name. So the city of Charleston gets a lot of a lot of national exposure with the work that we do and how we use those ATAX accommodations funds, because everything we do is promoting, Charleston, essentially, because it's called Charleston Wine and Food. And we work with national media partners. We bring in national media. So there's a lot of exposure that Charleston Wine and Food gets on a national level from the media entity in the use of those dollars. So.
Yes, ma'am. And now, do you expect to actually have funding from both the city of Charleston and North Charleston?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, North Charleston hadn't had their funding open until just this year, post-COVID. So something that's interesting with, the accommodations tax money, so that the dollars come from people, paying that tax when they stay in hotels. Obviously, we had a kind of decrease during COVID, and some municipalities, it took them a little bit longer than others in order to get those funding streams back up, applications up. So the city of North Charleston has theirs in motion again this year, which is exciting.
Wow. And have you all actually recovered since COVID?
That's a hard question. Has anyone recovered since COVID? I feel like we have new challenges now that we didn't have in event production before. Everything's more expensive. It costs a lot to put on an event of this scale. And then when you also think about, the increase in costs that restaurants have seen, food costs, labor costs, we experience all of those too, because we are a culinary festival. So it's different. I don't know if you can say like it will ever be like it was, right? Because I don't think it ever can be like it was. I think it's just different, and it's navigating how do you turn that different into something that continues to be successful and achieves the mission that the organization was set out to achieve.
So how can you do it differently under your leadership?
Well, for me, I'm from Charleston, and so something that I have really championed in this year as executive director is the importance of community and involving the community to participate and be a part of the creation of this event. Making sure that we are using our platform for the good of all and not necessarily maybe the good of some. And in particular, making sure we're supporting the people that support us, So as a festival that celebrates the culinary and hospitality industry, something that we introduced last year under my leadership was an ingredient stipending program. So every chef and beverage professional that is participating in our event receives a stipend from the organization to offset their hard costs of participation. And we have found that has been received with open arms from that community. It's allowed us to diversify the type of talent that we're showcasing in our festival. And it's allowed us to potentially have restaurants that might not have like large marketing firms or large marketing budgets, the ability to participate. So that's just something we'll continue, to do that. I think relationships are so important, and relationship building is important. And every single person can control the way they make other people feel. And that's what we're trying to do in the creation of this, is make people feel that sense of community that Charleston has.
Yes, ma'am. And two more questions for you before you have to go, Alyssa. But that stipend, is this consistent, or is it with different types of chefs, or experience-wise?
It's different per experience. So because of the way for culinary, like a sit-down meal is going to be more costly than maybe tasting samples at the Village. So the way that we do our stipending is based on a per head. So it's also indicative on capacity. So what a chef is doing at opening night, for instance, is going to be different than what a chef's doing in a restaurant dinner.
Oh, yes.
So they all fluctuate depending on the experience and the type of culinary that's being produced.
Yes, ma'am. And lastly, Alyssa, this is a big you know, big talker here in the Low Country as of December. As you know, the Food and Wine, Southern Living Magazine, and Travel Leisure are all coming together for the first ever Food and Wine Classic in Charleston, which will be presented by the Charleston Area Convention and Business Bureau coming up this September for a weekend-long festival celebrating the best of Charleston has to offer, including chefs, the local talent, wine and food tastings and seminars and demonstrations, that is, as you just mentioned. Let me ask you a couple of things about this. I know this is mostly with the Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, so I hope to ask them about this as soon as possible. But how will the Food and Wine Classic make Charleston wine and food more challenging and possibly jeopardize the future of your festival?
Well, that's a difficult question, Quentin, because I don't know the answer to that yet. But what I can say is that, you know, we are a nonprofit organization. This organization is created by Charlestonians for Charlestonians. Like, local is something that has been the fabric of our DNA since we've been created. And we are your neighbors, we're your neighbors. We invest in this community year round. We give back to this community year round, and we celebrate local talent. So my hope is that it doesn't have an effect on us, and hopefully we can continue to flourish and create a fabulous event that really showcases the community of this area, and that we, as always, are looking forward to continuing to give back.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Well, Alyssa Smith with the Charleston Wine and Food Festival, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks so much for having me, Quentin.
Oh, you're very welcome.